Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something about men that most people never understand. When a woman stops reaching out, it shakes something deep inside a man. See, most men are used to being in control of the situation. They think they've got time, they think they've got you figured out. They believe that no matter how much they pull back, you'll always be the one to call, to text, to check in. But when that stops, when your phone goes silent and your energy disappears, that's when the real storm begins inside his head. When a man starts questioning his importance in your life, it creates a deep psychological shift that most people never see. Men thrive on significance. They want to feel needed, wanted, and appreciated. It's not just about attention, it's about validation. When you stop reaching out, something inside him begins to whisper, maybe I don't matter as much as I thought I did. That thought alone can disturb his peace. At first, he might brush it off, pretending it doesn't affect him. He'll tell himself, you're probably busy or just giving space. But the truth is, that quiet distance begins to grow louder in his mind with every passing day. You see, men often tie their value to how others respond to them. Your texts, your calls, your presence, all of it feeds his sense of importance. When that suddenly disappears, his ego feels threatened. It's like taking away something that kept him steady without him even realizing it. Now he starts to analyze. He replays moments looking for signs. He asks himself questions he never cared to ask before. Did I do something wrong? Did she lose interest? Was I too distant? That's when he realizes how much your energy anchored his confidence. When you used to reach out, it gave him reassurance. It reminded him that no matter what happened during the day, someone cared enough to check on him. It was a small act, but it meant a lot. When that stops, the comfort he once took for granted starts to vanish. That's when he begins to feel your absence in a real way. He starts to notice that his phone doesn't light up the same way anymore. The messages that used to make him smile are gone. The connection that once boosted his mood now feels like an empty space. Men don't always talk about their feelings, but they feel deeply. When they sense they're losing their place in your life, their mind becomes restless. He'll wonder if you found someone new, if you're too busy, or if you finally decided that he's not worth the effort. Every thought pulls him in different directions, and yet the main one always remains. He's questioning his importance. He starts noticing your silence more than he ever noticed your words. That's the irony. Your absence gets more attention than your presence ever did. It's in this stage that his pride and vulnerability collide. His pride tells him not to reach out first, to stay strong, to act like he doesn't care. But his heart, it starts craving the smallest sign from you. He wants to know he still matters, that he's still somewhere in your thoughts. The longer you stay silent, the more uncertain he becomes. It's like a mirror reflecting all his insecurities back at him. He remembers the times you tried, the moments you cared, and he realizes he may have taken all that for granted. That's what happens when you stop reaching out. He begins to question his place in your life, and that uncertainty becomes a storm inside him. It forces him to face a truth he avoided for too long, that your effort wasn't just attention, it was emotional support. And without it, he starts to feel just how empty his world is without you reminding him that he matters. When a man's ego and emotions begin to clash, it creates a silent war inside him that most people will never see. Men are taught to be strong, to stay in control, to never show weakness. But when a woman he cares about suddenly stops reaching out, that control begins to slip. His ego tells him he's fine, that he doesn't need anyone, that she'll come back eventually. But deep inside, his emotions tell a different story. His heart starts to ache for the connection that's missing. His pride says, don't call her, but his emotions whisper, you miss her. That internal conflict becomes louder with time. It's like two voices fighting for dominance. One wants to protect his pride. The other wants to follow his feelings. First, the ego usually wins. He'll act like nothing's wrong, post pictures, laugh with friends, pretend he's moving on. But that act only lasts so long before the silence starts to sink in. His emotions begin to take over during quiet moments. Late at night, when he's alone, when he scrolls through his phone and sees your name still there but no new message, that's when reality hits him hardest. His heart feels the distance that his ego caused. He starts wondering why you stopped reaching out, but he's too proud to admit he misses you. That's the exact point where his emotions start to push back against his pride. Ego wants control. It doesn't want to be the one who chases, the one who looks desperate. It wants to keep its image intact. But emotions don't care about appearances. They crave connection, understanding, and warmth. When you pull away, that lack of emotional balance begins to eat at him. He might try to distract himself, talk to new people, dive into work, or stay busy, but none of it fills the space you once did. That's because emotional attachment isn't something he can easily replace. It's built through moments, through consistency, through feeling seen and valued. And when that's gone, it doesn't matter how strong his ego is. The emptiness remains. The battle between ego and emotion can make him do strange things. One minute, he might convince himself that he's done with you, that you're not worth his time. The next, he's checking your social media, wondering if you've moved on. He might even tell his friends he's over it, but deep down, he knows he's lying. That's what happens when his heart and his pride aren't on the same page. His emotions start pulling him toward you, while his ego keeps pulling him away. The longer this conflict continues, the more exhausted he becomes. Eventually, the emotions start to win small battles. He begins to realize that protecting his pride has cost him peace. He starts remembering the moments you cared, the things you said, the way you made him feel. The ego can't give him that kind of comfort. Only genuine connection can. That's when he starts to understand that his silence isn't power, it's punishment. He thought ignoring his emotions made him strong, but now he sees it only made him lonely. When a man's ego and emotions collide, he learns the hard way that strength isn't about holding back feelings. It's about admitting what he truly feels before it's too late. When you stop reaching out, a man begins to wonder if you've moved on or lost interest, and that thought starts to take over his mind in ways he didn't expect. At first, he might not want to believe it. He'll tell himself you're just busy, that maybe you're giving him space, or that you'll text soon. But as time passes and there's still nothing from you, the doubt grows stronger. It's a quiet kind of fear that starts creeping into his thoughts when he least expects it. He starts wondering if someone else has your attention, if your silence means you found peace without him. That thought alone shakes him because it forces him to face a question he doesn't want to answer. What if you no longer care? Men often take consistency as a sign of affection. When you were always there, always showing interest, he felt secure in your presence. He thought he could take his time, that your effort would never fade. But when you stop reaching out, he starts to feel the imbalance. That consistent energy he used to rely on suddenly disappears, and now he's left to question his place in your world. Every day that passes without a message from you adds to his confusion. He checks his phone more often than he admits, not because he expects a message, but because he secretly hopes for one. That hope keeps him tied to the thought of you even when he tries to act indifferent. As the silence stretches, he begins to analyze every detail. He replays your last conversations, searching for signs of distance he might have missed. He wonders if he said something wrong or if his behavior pushed you away. Then, slowly, insecurity starts to creep in. He begins to think maybe he wasn't enough. That's the irony. The same man who once seemed so confident now starts to question his worth just because your attention is gone. He may not admit it, but your silence makes him feel replaceable, and no man wants to feel that way. The more he thinks about it, the heavier the thought becomes. He starts imagining you moving on, laughing with someone else, building a life where he no longer exists. That image burns in his mind because it confronts him with a painful truth. He never realized how much he needed your presence until it disappeared. It's a strange mix of regret and realization that hits him all at once. He wants to believe he still matters, but your silence tells him a story his heart doesn't want to hear. When a man starts wondering if you've moved on, it's not just jealousy that consumes him, it's the loss of control. He no longer feels like he understands where he stands with you, and that uncertainty eats at him. He tries to stay calm, but every time he checks his phone and sees nothing, his heart drops a little more. Eventually, he starts realizing that the comfort he once had came from knowing you cared. And without that, everything feels unstable. That's when he starts missing not just your attention, but the sense of security your presence gave him. He begins to understand that the silence isn't just distance, it's a reflection of how much his actions might have cost him. And that realization, that thought of you moving on, becomes the one thing he can't escape. No matter how hard his pride tries to hide it, when you go silent and stop reaching out, the silence becomes louder than words. And that's when a man starts to realize your true value. See, while you were always there, he thought your presence was guaranteed. He didn't notice the small things, the way you listened, the way you cared, the effort you put in to make him feel special. He got used to your consistency, and because of that, he forgot that your effort was a choice, not an obligation. But when that energy fades, when you no longer call, text, or check on him, he starts to feel a gap that nothing else can fill. That's when the realization begins to sink in. The comfort he once felt came from you, and now that it's gone, he's left feeling incomplete. At first, he might try to brush it off. He'll tell himself that he doesn't need you, that he's fine, that he prefers the space. But deep down, he knows something's missing. His days start to feel different. The excitement he once felt when your name popped up on his phone is gone. He notices how quiet things have become, and that quiet starts to bother him. He starts remembering little moments, the times you encouraged him, the laughter you shared, the warmth in your words. Every memory becomes a reminder of how much value you brought into his life. What once felt ordinary now feels priceless, and he begins to understand that the connection you offered wasn't something he can easily find again. The silence works on him slowly. It doesn't hit all at once. It builds day by day. At first, he misses your messages. Then he starts missing your energy. And eventually, he begins to miss the peace he felt when you were around. It's a powerful kind of absence because it teaches him that your presence was never something to take lightly. When you stop reaching out, he finally sees all the things he took for granted. Your patience, your kindness, your consistency. He starts realizing that love, care, and attention aren't guaranteed. They're earned. And maybe, just maybe, he didn't earn enough of yours. That's when regret sets in. He starts wishing he had paid more attention, that he had appreciated you while he had the chance. He might even scroll through old messages just to feel that connection again. He might look at your pictures, trying to remember the feeling of being close to you. The realization of your value doesn't come in a single moment. It's a slow awakening that hits him harder each day. He begins to understand that your silence isn't punishment. It's a reflection of your worth. You stop chasing, and that forced him to see what losing you really feels like. Now he's left with the truth. Your absence has meaning. It teaches him that not everyone stays when they're taken for granted. And in that silence, he finally sees your worth more clearly than he ever did when you were speaking. It's not the noise of your presence that changes him, but the quiet of your absence that makes him realize you were never ordinary. You were his peace, his balance, and his biggest loss. When you stop reaching out, a man starts to miss your presence and energy in ways he never expected. It's not just about missing the messages, the calls, or the conversations. It's about missing the feeling you brought into his life. You became a part of his routine, a calm space in his chaos, and a comfort in his uncertainty. When that's suddenly gone, it creates a void that nothing else can fill. He might try to distract himself, go out with friends, keep busy, or even talk to other people. But deep inside, there's a quiet emptiness that follows him everywhere. It's not about your physical presence. It's the energy you carried that he starts to crave. You see, your energy had a way of softening his world. Maybe it was your patience, your humor, your way of listening, or the peace you brought into every conversation. He might not have noticed it before, but it made a difference. You brought stability where he had confusion, warmth where he had pride, and understanding where he felt lost. When that disappears, his world feels colder. He doesn't laugh the same way, doesn't smile as often, and doesn't feel as motivated. He may not admit it, but your absence starts to drain his spirit because he realizes that you weren't just another person. You were his emotional balance. At first, he'll try to fight the feeling. His ego will tell him not to care, that he's fine without you, But the heart doesn't listen to ego for long. Eventually, he starts to feel the truth. He'll find himself remembering your words at random moments, replaying your laughter in his mind, or thinking about how you used to make him feel seen when no one else did. Even the smallest things start to remind him of you, a song, a phrase, a place. It's like your energy lingers around him no matter how much he tries to move on. What hurts him most isn't just that you're gone, but that he didn't value your presence when he had it. He remembers the times he ignored your messages, took too long to reply, or failed to appreciate the effort you put in. Now, with every day that passes in silence, he starts to understand that your energy was a gift. You didn't just talk to him, you poured into him. You gave him encouragement, support, and attention that most people wouldn't. And now, without it, he feels the difference in his mood, his focus, even in how he carries himself. That's when missing you becomes more than just an emotion. It becomes a realization. He begins to understand that what he's missing isn't just you. It's the peace that came with you. It's the comfort of knowing someone cared. It's the lightness your presence brought into his heavy days. When that energy is gone, his world feels duller, quieter, and lonelier. He realizes that what you gave him wasn't something temporary, it was something meaningful. And no matter how much time passes, a part of him keeps searching for that same feeling again. The kind of energy only you brought into his life. When you stop reaching out, your absence makes a man reflect on his own behavior. At first, he may not want to face it. He might even convince himself that you're just being dramatic or that you'll come back eventually. But as the silence stretches and the days go by, reality starts to sink in. He begins to notice how the connection that once felt so alive has gone cold. And that's when his mind turns inward. He starts replaying moments in his head, the times he didn't listen, the times he brushed off your effort, or when he made you feel like your presence didn't matter. Now, in the quiet, all those little things start to echo. He begins to see himself from your perspective, and that's not always an easy sight to face. When you were there, he didn't have to think too deeply about his actions. You filled in the emotional gaps. You reached out, you cared, and you made sure things stayed connected. But when that effort stopped, the balance broke. Suddenly, he realizes that relationships don't just survive on love, they survive on effort, communication, and consistency. He starts questioning his role in how things turned out. He wonders if his pride got in the way, if he was too distant, or if he failed to make you feel valued. That's the power of your absence. It forces him to take accountability in ways that your presence never could. As he reflects, he begins to understand that the silence isn't just about you being gone. It's a mirror showing him the impact of his behavior. He starts to see the patterns, how he took your kindness for granted, how he assumed you'd always be there no matter what. He realizes that every time you reached out, you were giving him a chance to feel loved. And every time he ignored it, he was slowly pushing you away. Now that you're gone, those small dismissive moments don't seem so small anymore. They become heavy, and they start to weigh on his conscience. Reflection is uncomfortable, but it's also awakening. The longer he sits in the silence, the more he learns about himself. He starts to see how he handled emotions, how his ego made him act careless, and how he might have hurt someone who genuinely cared, that's when regret creeps in. He begins to wish he had done things differently. Maybe replied sooner, maybe listened more, maybe appreciated your presence while he still had it. It's painful, but it's also real. Your absence becomes his greatest teacher, showing him the consequences of taking love for granted. Over time, he begins to see that the distance wasn't your weakness. It was your strength. It forced him to face truths he had been avoiding. He realizes that he can't always expect someone else to hold the connection together. He learns that silence doesn't always mean indifference. Sometimes it means self-respect. And as he sits with those thoughts, he starts to understand that the loss he feels is not just about missing you. It's about realizing that he could have been better, that he should have done more, and that his own behavior is what turned silence into distance.